Welcome everybody to the Honker Heights Chamber Politics and Policy Chat. I am your host, Gina Pence with the Honker Heights Chamber of Commerce. And today we're going to be talking about our City of Honker Heights mayor election, which will be held on November the 3rd of 2020. And it's an honor today for us to have Mayor Smith with us. He was able to come over and visit with us during this virtual chat. And Mayor Smith has announced that he is going to be running for his re-election seat for the mayor. And so we wanted to have him here today so he can share a little bit more about his background and why he is decided to run for re-election and for the mayor's seat. So, Mayor, thank you for being with us today. We truly appreciate you taking the time. We know you're busy, so thank you. We know not only are you serving as the mayor, but you have a full-time job as well and a family here in our community, so thank you for taking the time. And Mayor, would you please share with our viewers today a little bit more about your background so that way they'll get to know you a little better?
Yeah, sure. Well, again, my name is Spencer Smith. I'm the mayor of the city of Honker Heights. I've been the mayor for a little over 3 years now. And again, since the elections were pushed back from May, and we'll be holding that within the general election on November 3rd, I've continued to serve in that capacity, especially under this cloud of COVID-19. My background as mayor, what led up to that is that I majored in government at the University of Texas in Austin. And then I served in the United States military in the Marine Corps. I was an aviator for almost 24 years. And when I retired, my wife and I, we chose to come back to Texas, and we chose to live in Honker Heights. We'd never lived here before. Our children didn't go to school here. And we found this to be a wonderful community since we've been here since 1997. I wanted to be able to give back to my community. One of the things that I did as far as being the job that I have as far as financial services, I wanted to be able to have a job where I could help people, but also I wanted to have a job where I could set my own schedule. And I'm able to go home and be with my wife at night. I'm able to be active in my church, and then the other part, I really wanted to be active in the community. And I've been able to achieve those goals through the years. I first got started working with the city of Honker Heights on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I was an alternate for 2 years, and then I served for 6 years going off as the chairman. The Planning and Zoning Commission has term limits that you could serve for 2 consecutive 3-year terms, then you go off. The year that I was off, I was appointed by the council to the Zoning Board of Adjustment for a year, and then I ran for council, and I was elected to place 5. I served there for 6 years, went off for a year, then was re-elected, ran for council again for place 3, and served there. And when Mayor Robinson decided not to run for mayor, I threw my hat in the ring and I ran for mayor, and have served as mayor since that time. Our city has a lot going for it. You know, we talk along with the chamber being the bright star of Central Texas, and we don't have to say that because there's a lot of people out there who say that for us. And again, that's because of the citizens on what they find here in this city, how they stay engaged with what we've got going on, that this is a really special place. One of the things I really enjoy working with are all the council members. We're very different. We bring a lot of talents to our meetings where we can really address issues that are very, very important. But also our city manager, David Mitchell, and all the directors of the city, they're all first class, and their number 2 are first class, that they can step up and take that place. So a lot of the things that we have going on that the citizens should be aware of, that one thing, we're going through our budget right now, and again, we're looking to finalize that in the next couple of weeks going forward. A lot of information has been out there. One thing I will tell you is that there are things on our city website. All of the city manager, all his directors are available to you during the week. A lot of the things, the information's there for you to have that. If you've got a question, then ask the council members, the city manager and his people, that will be able to answer that question. That way we're able to eliminate any false narratives that go on. Understand there are a lot of things floating around out there, and I've encountered some of them myself, and they're simply not true. It's a false narrative. I don't know what their motivation is, but some people want to be negative about things or to disseminate some information that just isn't good for you or for us as a city. Some of the things that you see that we have, our roads, they're really important. Our roads, our water, our wastewater, and again, the other quality of life things that we have as far as our library, our parks department. All those things, we want to make this to be a special place. All those things take money. And again, that's what your city manager and his staff and the city council and myself and work into the budget, so we'll be able to have those things that we can afford. One of the major issues that we have, or really the major issue that we have, is the 100% disabled veterans property exemption. Okay, many of you may have heard about that, some of you haven't. But again, that we honor our military, we're a military town, and again, the motivation on that is to really to continue to take care of our soldiers and their families while they're here, and most especially when they're deployed around the world. But what that has impacted when the Texas legislature initiated that is that they wanted to do an honorable thing. It was very altruistic as far as taking care of our 100% disabled veterans, and by extension later on to their surviving spouses. So they don't pay property tax. The impact of that is since the city of Harker Heights does not abut Fort Hood, we are not included in a pot of money that the legislature put out there for communities that are disproportionately impacted by this. And the way that affects us is that on this budget this year, it's over $2.5 million that we don't receive. There are over 1,100 homes in Harker Heights that are not on the tax rolls. The way the city is able to get the money to be able to provide those services that you deserve and expect is through property taxes or ad valorem tax rate and sales tax rebate that we get that comes back from the state. So you can see there's a challenge that we have right away, and then again with COVID-19, and especially some of the issues that our small business owners are going through right now, we can see a real effect on our city. But I will let you know that myself, the council, and the city staff, we're committed to provide within the assets that we have to provide the best services that we can for you and for your families. Again, we really appreciate our soldiers. Many of the employees of the city of Harker Heights are former military. Many of their spouses are former military. And some of the things that not many people know about that, but this past year, there's a fraternal organization called the 40 and 8 that, again, 40 and 8 comes from the rail cars that moved men and horses during World War I. But again, this fraternal organization selected the city of Harker Heights as their city of the year because of what we do for active duty and retired and former soldiers and veterans, because of what we do in this city. They selected us as their city of the year for the entire United States. And again, I went to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina back in, it's been almost a year now, September, to receive that award. And again, that we had to make a few speeches on that. But the first group we talked to were the women, because they're the ones who really run that organization. And so as I made my small speech, they asked if there were any questions. And this one woman raised her hand and stood up. And she said, "I don't have a question. I just want to let everybody in the room know I used to live in Harker Heights, and it's a great place to live." So again, that's how that word's being spread out there. Other things that you may not be aware of, our Texas Police Chiefs Association just honored our city police of Harker Heights and Chief Gadd as an award for the service and for what they do for our area. All the other departments that have received many, many awards and honors throughout our state. So again, that's my background. That's why I want to serve, and I solicit your vote as we go forward for a re-election for mayor. Again, it'll be for a second 3-year term now, 2.5-year term, and I look forward to accomplishing some of the things. I have a lot of contacts down in our state, and again, that's one thing we let people know. The city council, the mayor, we just don't meet on Tuesdays for our workshops or for our city council meetings. Again, there are a lot of events that we attend, not as many right now because of COVID-19, but again, to represent the city. Again, this last legislature, we were down in Austin giving testimony, again, primarily for the 100% disabled veterans issue that was not able to get out of the Senate, even though due to our representative, Brad Buckley, it was able to come out of the House unanimously supporting what our initiative was. We continue to work on those things. There are other projects out there for other parks and other issues that we have in the city that I want to continue to serve as mayor, and hopefully we can bring those things to fruition while I'm the mayor for my second term, if so elected. So thank you.
Well, sir, thank you for giving us a little bit of background information, and thank you again for your service. We appreciate the service that you've done as a veteran and in our community. So some of the questions, we may have kind of touched upon those a little bit, so we'll kind of keep those a little short. You did mention why you are wanting to run for mayor again. And one of the things that we would like to ask you is, you touched upon this a little bit, was about COVID. How do you feel the city has done in addressing the challenges with COVID? And would you have done anything differently?
I don't think I would have done anything differently. I think our city has paid attention to this, and again, that our citizens don't just stay within the confines of Harker Heights. They work in different places. They travel for business or pleasure or for whatever. But again, I think in general, most of our citizens have taken the direction to heart as far as safe distancing, and again, wearing masks. As you can see, I have my mask here. I'm not wearing my mask so people can see my face, whether that's a good thing or not. But again, to be able to practice those things, and again, we wanted to go forward. So each time we have the city council will vote to extend. So right now, the restrictions that we have go to the end of September. Okay, but basically we follow Governor Abbott as far as his directives, and Bell County Judge Blackburn as far as their directives. So we got one word that's being put out there so people can follow on that. I just encourage people that, again, that it's an individual choice, it's a decision. But again, as you do that, think about your family and think about community. Okay, the thing is yes, it's your decision, and we know through the news we see all different attitudes, and that's an individual choice. But again, where I'm coming from is try to be, think of others, beside yourself, and have a sense of community going forward.
Very good, sir. So 2020 has brought race relations to the forefront of not just Harker Heights, but other communities. But Harker Heights is a very diverse community. What is the number one way that you think that we can make a substantial difference in combating racial division and work towards that unity that you just talked about, sir?
Yeah. Well, again, we are a very diverse community. And again, that we see a lot of the issues that have occurred in a lot of the major metropolitan areas that we have. I think one thing, being a military community though, that we have people from all over the world, all over the United States that live here and that serve here. And from my standpoint, I want to take a person from where they come from, no matter where they're from geographically, or whatever their skin color is, or whatever their culture is. That I look at that as that we're all creatures of God, and the thing is we need to look at each other individually, and again, that's our starting point. We see some of the adults that are out there, but oftentimes I look at that, oftentimes, I work in downtown Killeen, and there are a lot of homeless people down there. And oftentimes I think about it, I see this man or this woman, and they were somebody's child at one time. And I wonder what happened in their life to get them to where they are then. So I think, again, getting back to us being community, that's what's really important. All lives matter. All lives matter. Each individual life matters. And so that's where my point of departure is. I think our city's been very good with that. We had a recent meeting with Tanika Driver, who's the local president for the NAACP, with the city manager David Mitchell, with the police chief Phil Gadd, and myself, and we were able to address her concerns. And I think that she went away with that with a good idea of what Harker Heights is about. Harker Heights is about Harker Heights. We don't compare ourselves to anybody else. We just try to be the best city that we can be.
Very good. And so, do you support law enforcement?
Oh, very much so. You know, it's one of the discussions that we've had. We've seen some different issues, again, a lot of that in the news about different law enforcement as far as defunding police and things like that. But, you know, I'd shared that in one of the conversations that I had. It's basically, think about Ghostbusters. Who are you gonna call?
Right.
Okay? The thing is that City of Harker Heights, again, we have outstanding police and fire. Those people are there to take care of you and to take care of your family. That's one thing I really stress. You know, while our soldiers are deployed in Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places, they know that they can rest easy and that they can carry out their mission because they know that our public safety officers are taking care of their families. They're there at night so that they can sleep peacefully, and so that our soldiers, when they're deployed, that they can pay attention to the mission and keep their head in the box while they're over there.
Very good. Are there any laws, regulations, or policies that you would like to see changed or added to help accommodate the growth in our city?
Nothing really comes to mind. Again, the city is it's dynamic. We're not static. And again, that we have just recently, last night, city council meeting went over 3 hours last night. And we had many public hearings, many new business items, and a lot of those dealt with changes in our ordinances. We have a very good planning department, and again, very good public works department. And again, a lot of these decisions, these are things that have evolved over a couple of years, many different workshops, a lot of citizen impact, okay, or input when we have those things. And so as we see issues that are out there that we need to be more safe, that we want to be able to do that, things that will add to our quality of life, we want to do that. And oftentimes we'll look at something that's in there that's an ordinance, we really go, that really doesn't make any sense anymore. And so we're able to do away with that. So there's an evaluation process that's ongoing, even within our ordinances, to make sure that it fits the time. And again, when we do these things, again, getting back to what I'd mentioned before, the citizens, you have the ability to contact whoever the area is, the director, to be able to talk to him or his people or the city manager. I answer a lot of emails from people and set up. I used to meet people more face to face, but again, COVID's very, very difficult. But basically, that you don't have to wait till a council meeting. You can do that day, so you can get the answer that you want. So again, I think that it's a process that we go through, and again, we try to be firm, try to be fair, try to be equitable for whatever we do, that we're able to enforce whatever ordinances that we do put on the books.
Well, I think that's great, and there's probably a lot of viewers today that needed to know that information from you, so thank you for sharing. We just have a couple more questions, sir. So the reduction in city taxable income is always a primary concern. How would you prioritize essential services to minimize the potential impact of those cuts?
Well, the thing is, that's one thing the city manager did this year. Okay, we went ahead. We haven't seen a real dip in our sales tax rebate because that's normal. Those numbers are it's a lagging number, so it's 2 months behind that we're seeing. So that hasn't really happened a lot. A lot of the soldiers, as far as them being deployed, which they have discretionary income, and again, we've had a number of them that are back home, that are in our restaurants and in the area, so that it really helps with that. Our city continues to grow. We have a lot of R1 or single family homes. A lot of duplexes are going up. So again, that really helps the city as far as those revenues that come into us. But the city manager did have the council and then had the directors that went ahead and did an estimate of a 15% reduction. So those numbers are out there. So again, we have that potential that as we go forward, is that we're able to look at our numbers. And again, it isn't static. So our finance department, they give us updates every quarter. And again, even more frequently if we need it, about how we're tracking within our budget. So if we need to make an on-course correction going forward. There are no particular items that we have. We just want to be smart with the assets that we have. And again, the city of Harker Heights is not Killeen, we're not Belton, we're not Temple, okay? We're Harker Heights. We have our issues to deal with, they have their issues to deal with, and there's different ways to go about that.
To handle that. Well, thank you, sir, for that. And I think that that's very good information to share again with our viewers today. So, due to COVID, many local businesses have suffered financially. Are there any programs or resources you would like to make available to support our local businesses?
I think that working with the county government, with the state, and then different things that the federal government are doing, we try to support them again with the Chamber of Commerce. That we want to buy local. We want to work with them, but I think that in many ways we're limited on the scope and the degree on how we can help them as they go through troubled times. I know that there are a lot of agencies that are out there that are pitching in. We support many of them. We just had an initiative here for having some of these COVID bags type of things. So we're doing that through our Healthy Homes, which is part in our police department. So again, that gives our contact with folks that are out there, and again, lets our citizens know of what we have available through Healthy Homes.
Very good. Is there any issue that maybe we haven't covered that you would like to share with our viewers today?
Primary issue that we really deal with is really the impact of the veterans, the disabled veterans, 100% tax exemption. That affects everything. And again, that number is going to continue to grow. Again, we've continued to work on that issue. Again, within the state of Texas, with all the pandemic impact, it's going to be a hard pull to be able to get included in that money of the cities that are disproportionately impacted. But again, just by degree, the numbers are out there, and a while back is just the impact. The city of Harker Heights, there's probably a city that was smaller than us, that was by ratio, that was more impacted. But again, Harker Heights was up there as either number 1, number 2, or number 3 as far as most impacted. The average impact for that legislation for municipalities across the state of Texas, ours was over 9% at that time. The average was 0.53 for other municipalities. Our contention is that the legislature, they passed this, which again was a very honorable thing to do in consideration of our veterans, especially our disabled veterans, to be able to do that. But we would hope that they would take another look at that and spread that across the whole state. There are other cities, Nolanville, for example, but also down near San Antonio. Schertz, Cibolo, those are other cities that are really being impacted negatively by this. And it's a real strange. I've talked to members of the Texas Municipal League, have talked to some of those individuals from other municipalities, and they're hurting as well. But across the board, we're going to do what's right for our citizens. We're going to do what's right for our soldiers. And we want to make sure, explicitly making sure, that there's nothing against our disabled veterans. That's not the point that we're talking about. It's not directed at them. We're just saying to the state, take another look at what you guys initiated and what the unintended consequences are of your legislative action. So that's really our biggest point, I think, that we have.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you sharing with that. And sir, is there anything else that you would like to make closing remarks for people to cast their vote for Mayor Spencer Smith?
Well, thank you. Well, I think we've put it out there. Jean has been really good with the questions that she's provided. Again, the introduction that I want to have. I still want to continue to serve. Again, the city council and the mayors, we serve for a maximum of 2 3-year terms. So after 6 years, you hang up your spurs and go find something else to do. And mayors don't come back. So they go do other things. So I solicit your vote. My signs will be coming up pretty soon. I usually didn't, in past experiences, I didn't see any benefit of putting them up before Labor Day. So my signs will be going up, and so I appreciate your input. Those of you who know me, I ask you to spread the word, and for me that's out there, and I look forward to serving as mayor. Again, I think I have the time, I think I have the talent, and I think I have the training to continue to be your mayor as we go forward. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate your time today, sir. And I just want to remind everybody that the election will be November the 3rd for the city of Harker Heights. And the chamber will put out the information for early voting. So please make sure that you go and cast your vote. That's the only way that you can be heard. Thank you. Welcome to the Hawker Heights Chamber of Commerce Policy and Politics chat today. Today we're going to be picking up on the second part of our candidate for the City of Hawker Heights mayor's seat. And we're honored today to have one of our candidates with us. And I know that normally we have an in-person forum, but we are taking this virtually this year due to COVID. So at this time, I would really like to thank Vitalis for joining us today during this chat and conversation. And Vitalis, would you tell our audience today a little bit more about you and why you've decided to run in this race?
Of course, yeah, and thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Hopefully I get to talk to members of the community, not in real time, but hopefully get to know who I am and why I'm here today. So yes, as you mentioned, Gina, I'm Vitalis Dubeninkas. I am originally from Lithuania, so far Eastern Europe. Most people don't know where it is, but I've lived in America most of my life, so I have the immigrant story as a background. I have 2 degrees in biology, so not necessarily political science, but I'm not some random Joe Schmo off the street coming in here trying to be the mayor, so a little bit of a critical thinking ability. Why I decided to run for mayor? Well, for quite a long time, people my age, maybe younger, maybe older, they've been complaining about issues in the community, and that's where it always stops. It's just they're voicing their concerns, but they do nothing about it. And now I myself was doing that for quite a number of years, and I was like, time to actually act. There's stuff that needs to be changed, there are problems that need to be addressed, and that's one of the reasons I decided to run for mayor. Why Hawker Heights? So, because this is my home now. My wife had her first child, so we just live right by the lake, so it's like, this is our community, this is our home, and I'd like to make it as good of a place for our family and every family in Hawker Heights as I could. That's roughly a short synopsis of my life.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that with us. I'm sorry, I need to remove my glasses so I can read my questions here for you. So we're going to start with just a few questions, and I know that you've shared with the audience a little bit about why you've decided to run. But one of the first questions that we want to ask you is, how do you feel that the city has done addressing the challenges with COVID? And if you had the opportunity, would you do anything different?
It's a really great question, actually. I was discussing this with a family friend and my wife a while ago. And one thing that should have been done better, which is addressed now, is having the restrooms and water fountains available. I know you and I'm assuming we have a home, an apartment, whatnot. But I do see homeless people or just joggers, they ran from the lake all the way down to the city center. You have to use a bathroom. Well, the public ones are closed. The restaurants are closed in terms of dining. Mm-hmm. Where do you go use the restroom? Like a simple fundamental trait like that. So everybody's restrooms are closed. And if I was to use it in public, you could be slapped with a fine or a citation for doing so. So it's like a basic human necessity, and you can't fulfill it. So not only for the homeless people, but people as myself, when I was jogging, I have to get a drink of water. There's nowhere to get water. There's nowhere to use the restroom. So that was one thing that I thought should have been done better. Now it's addressed because the public restrooms are open, but still none of the water fountains are really working, or at least most of them are not. And it's still, Texas summer, so I feel like water and restrooms are a huge one that should have been done better. And I would have handled that part differently. Everything else I'd say was done well in terms of mandatory face masks inside. That's a good idea. I brought mine today, but I am healthy, so it's not an issue. But everything else, I would just say simple human needs and wants should have been addressed better, and hopefully will be addressed if this happens or gets worse this winter. That's about it.
Okay, no, that's perfect. Thank you. And one thing I do want to share with the audience today that, our face masks have all been worn into our business, so we are following protocol. It's just very difficult, and I'm sure that you all know, to be able to hear in a recording with our mask on. So that's why Vitalis and I have both chosen to remove our masks to have this interview. So our next question, 2020 has brought race relations to the forefront, not just, in Hawker Heights, but throughout every community. And Hawker Heights is a very diverse community. But what is the number one way to make substantial differences in combating that racial division that we are seeing and work towards that unity?
There's more than one answer. I'd say the simplest one is just creating dialogue. You can assume there's friction happening on both sides, but if you never speak with the people that are voicing their concerns in terms of the protesters, if you just see them on TV and all you see is footage of them breaking windows, yelling graffiti, you should start a dialogue. Ask them, why are you doing this? Why are you rebelling? Why are you doing this kind of stuff? And I think just creating dialogue will really help initiate that. It's a multifaceted problem. That would be the easiest start. Just speak to people about it, get their view. Why are they doing this? Why are people flying a Confederate flag? You could assume they're racist, but ask the person why. The same thing with the Black Lives Matter flag. Why are you flying it? Ask them, and then their response will hopefully give you some insight that you can address this kind of inequality and see where they're coming from. So it's just as simple as that, just starting a conversation.
Okay. Vitalis, do you support law enforcement?
Yes, I support law enforcement, but I believe they have more duties than they're qualified to address. So there is active, let's say, aggressive crimes that, let's say, a firefighter couldn't address or a mental health expert couldn't address, but you can't have an average police patrol officer being able to solve every single crime. There might be homeless people with mental issues, and just aggressively dealing with them is not how you deal with that kind of situation. So it is a necessary part of our society for violent crimes, but a lot of jobs could be done by healthcare professionals and firefighters. As in the case of car wrecks, house fires, you don't need a police officer to do everything in a car wreck. The firefighter would be more valuable, and the EMT would be much more valuable in that kind of situation. At least that's what I personally think.
Okay. So our next question, are there any laws, regulations, or policies that you would want to see changed or added to accommodate the growth in our city?
Well, specifically, this might be a niche issue, but I'm sure you've seen that the youth is interested in action sports, whether it's riding a bicycle, a skateboard, rollerblades, whatnot. There's really no safe area to do it in this city, nor is it really allowed in public areas. So the kids that are riding it on the sidewalks in the streets at the Carl Levin Park or whatnot, they technically are breaking a city ordinance, but there's nowhere else for them to safely do that kind of action sports activity. So that'd be one of the things I'd like to do, either create a location for it or at least get rid of the ordinance so they wouldn't get in trouble hypothetically. I've never seen law enforcement go after them for it, but in theory they could go after them and harass teenagers for just playing a sport or whatnot. And the other ordinance, which I don't know if it's been passed yet, but the city was voting in terms of parking on a lawn in terms of private property, and I believe they are kind of overreaching their land. So it's like if I had family members coming over for Christmas dinner, for Thanksgiving dinner, well, if my driveway can only fit 2 cars, where are my relatives supposed to park? So if that would result in a fine, that would affect a lot of families, and I believe on an online survey, only like 15 people answered the question. So you have 15 people making a decision for 23,000 plus people. So I believe a small little thing like that could affect the entire city in a sense. So I'd probably repeal that part if it gets passed in terms of parking on grass, if it's shown private property at least.
All right, so our next question, reduction in the city's taxable income is always a primary concern. How would you prioritize essential services to minimize the potential impact of those cuts?
Could you repeat that one more time?
Absolutely. So the reduction in city's taxable income is always a primary concern. How would you prioritize essential services to minimize the potential impact of those cuts?
Well, I'd probably try to collect a big data sample, realize where our tax dollars going. Is it to the police department? Is it going to the library? Is it going to the firefighters? I would look at the budget for the fiscal next year, 2021, and I would see who is needing the most funds and are those funds being used properly. So if we need to increase our taxes because we need to hire 2 more police officers or 2 more firefighters, 2 more librarians, I would look at it. Do we actually need them, or do we have plenty? And then we could not have to worry about increasing taxes if you don't need the extra funding in the first place.
Our next question, due to COVID, many local businesses have suffered financially. Are there any programs or resources that you would like to make available to those businesses to help them in this time of need?
Well, granted, we're a very small city, so our revenue and funds is quite limited. So what I would do is continue to contact the federal government, see if I can be that connecting link between the small business in Harker Heights and our federal government grant programs and make sure they get it. Sweet Tooth Donuts, which is just down the road. I don't know if any of y'all have been there, but it was one of those weird gray areas where the lady only bought the business. It's been in her name slightly under a year, so she technically was not eligible for those grants. And since all the students were sent home, those were her primary customers because the donut shop is right next to the high school. So the customers got reduced. She wasn't eligible for funds and basically had to keep burning through personal income to keep the business afloat. So that'd be one of those things. I'd try to get her story to a higher up federal employee, and hopefully they could find an exception for her because it is a local business. She is a member of our community and serving literally community members. I try to kind of connect the dots and help her out in terms of small business.
Okay. And our last and final question, is there any issues that we have not covered today that you would like to take a moment to address?
Well, granted, in the city's charter, the mayor has quite limited powers, so it's not authoritarianism. I couldn't just make up laws and pass stuff. But the three biggest things of my campaign would be first, improve the education system, because if you looked at the Harker Heights High School has, I believe, a C- rating as of last year, so they're saying that the students aren't leaving with the education that they deserve. Yes, they attended school for 4 years, but did they retain anything after 4 years? So I'd see if there's a way to maybe tie in media or maybe do a little retreat for the teachers to get remotivated, to kind of inspire the students so it's not just brain dump during exam time and then off to college or just to work somewhere and you learn nothing. And then the other things is mostly public utilities, as you mentioned, as you asked about the corona thing. Bathrooms, sidewalks, water fountains, these are basic human wants and needs that should always be available, especially if you're in a tight financial situation. Water should be free, bathrooms should be free. So public utilities, just for the community, improve sidewalks, let people walk. And then lastly, just keep updating, keep maintaining the parks, which I believe the city and the Director of Parks and Recreation has done a great job in terms of litter, but there's a few parks where you've noticed the sidewalks are all cracked up and you keep getting worse and worse. Same thing with the parking lot, so I just kind of revitalize those if at least there's funds that are possible. So public utility access, parks and recreations, and then education would be the three big things I would try to address if elected as mayor.
Okay, very good. Well, we appreciate you answering all of our questions and sharing with our community today so that way they can get to know you a little bit better. And I would really like to give you the opportunity to, if you would like to make a closing statement to any of your audience out there watching us today.
Sure. Well, it's not really a great way to summarize everything, but what I would say is if you do want something different, you actually want change, vote for somebody that is different. If you keep voting in people in their 50s and 60s, all from the same background, same education, you're most likely going to get the same results. If you vote for me, you're voting for a first-generation immigrant. I've lived in Tennessee, Texas, the state of Hawaii, Scotland, and Lithuania. So I've lived in different parts of the world, seen different cultures, experienced different things. And now I can kind of combine that and share it with the city. So just having these multiple perspectives, different background would lead to different results. So if you do vote for me, I can promise you that you'll get a different result than the same cookie cutter politician you get because you vote for the same demographic. So I would argue I'm quite different from them, but it is you, the people, that choose your elected officials. So I ask you to vote for me, but it is your choice at the end of the day. And thank you for your time.
Well, thank you again for joining us. And for our audience, I want to remind you to get out and vote. And that election is November the 3rd right here in Harker Heights, and the Chamber will put out information for your early voting. Thank you for watching us.